Good morning, everybody. Welcome to SafeDefend Live. I am Dave Evans with the great Doc Vecchi, the man of all knowledge on active shooter, active killer events. And today we're going to talk about it's not the tool, it's the motivation. And I can't think of anything more true than that, Doc.
Yeah, I wish other people could see this too, because it would really help on, preventing this stuff, right? One of the things I kind of want to just, point out, and what kind of made me think about this topic for today and for, all of our customers and viewers and things like this is, I think it was last week in the UK, at a terrible tragedy where a number of kids were killed in a dance studio
Oh,
um,
Jesus.
with a guy with a knife, and he just tragically, just horribly killed these kids, right? And you look at that and you're looking, okay, well, it's the UK, okay, and you think, okay, well, if you look at that problem there, um, they still, it's still, we don't know what the motivation is, but probably it's going to be a grievance. Probably it's going to be, you know, some problem that the attacker had with the school, someone in the school, maybe things like this, right? So that still remains to be seen in terms of that. But what we do know is that these attacks are done because a person's in crisis, right? And because
Yep.
they are threatened, right? And they feel threatened, and it gets to the point that violence becomes the answer. And once violence becomes the answer, then they decide on their target, and then they do the research and planning and all the stuff and the preparation, all the things that we know about, right? And then they carry out the attack. Now, in active killer attacks, obviously the purpose of the attack is going to be against maybe one person that wronged that person, the offender. Maybe it's a group of people, like all managers in a workplace, right? Or let's say that it's against a specific ethnicity or religion, and they go attack a synagogue, for example, and everyone and anyone that's in there is going to be a target because they're connected to the Jewish faith or whatever the ideology is, right? So we know that these are the reasons why they do it. Yet, we focus on, the outsiders. We don't really focus on the fact that it's probably somebody that, it's probably someone that's in crisis. And it's probably someone that if you deal with them early in that crisis and, and help them, fix this frustration they have with whatever it is, then likely the crisis is going to go away, and you got a chance to monitor them and build trust. And if the crisis goes away, the motivation to kill goes away, therefore you stop violence. It's a very simple approach. And the closer you are to the initial grievance in doing that crisis intervention, right, and identifying that person through the concerning behavior, and then as an organization or just as a human being, right, stepping out and saying, hey, look, you seem really frustrated about this. What's going on, right? That's typically the core of what we try to do
Yep.
to stop the violence. And so if you look at it from that perspective, that's essentially what happens, right? Then you look at cases that happen in the UK where it's a knifing, or you look at US schools where 40% of the attacks are done with knives or edged weapons. Or you look at the very same day, I think it was in 2012 with the Sandy Hook tragedy. That exact same day, there were 22 people seriously injured with a guy with a knife in China that attacked a school on the same day as Sandy Hook. And many people don't realize this. So, as administrators, as security people, as threat assessors, as teachers, as workers, as everyone else who is at risk of this type of violence, you got to understand that it's not about the tool, it's about the motivation, which is the grievance. And that, frankly, gives you the best way to prevent it. The other thing is that if you're focused on the tool, you're going to miss the knife, and you're going to miss the plan of that person trying to run somebody over in the parking lot. The bottom line is, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, is
Yep.
that gun using a gun or a firearm is very effective and very efficient, and certainly is usually the weapon of choice. However, if they can't get the gun, they will find another way. And we see this play out in the U.S., in the UK, and even in China, and that's a pretty good chunk of the world there in terms of sectors. So those are thoughts. What are yours, Dave?
Well, it's funny you say this. Somebody that's that far into crisis is going to do whatever it takes to reach their end goal. They don't care when they've gone that far down the path to violence. You can ban everything. They'll get a stick from a tree if that's what it takes. They'll get a baseball bat, a golf club. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's so many things you can use to harm somebody. That we need to focus. We really, as a nation, as intelligent human beings, need to focus on the person that's in crisis. How do we recognize that? How do we prevent that? How do we keep that from happening? And one of the things, I'm going to step off a little bit into a deep hole, so forgive me, but one of the biggest challenges I see facing people today is the amount of awful language and things that are said on social media because people are behind a keyboard and they think they're safe.
Yep.
And they're creating this whirlwind of people in crisis and grievance because they can't fight back, right? They're defenseless. So you push them far enough, we're going to see more and more and more and more of these events happening because human beings just aren't being nice to each other. They're just being mean. I mean, we've seen in the Olympics with our athletes, people saying stuff. Calling people, one of the rugby players was called fat on social media. She's not fat at all. She's a very athletic young lady, but why, right? What did that do to her persona? How's that going to impact her, and how is she going to react from that, right? We have gotten way too bold and stopped being good human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So until we understand that this creates a path to violence, and until we realize that because we're not being good human beings, are pushing it that way, we can expect more and more and more of these events until somebody says stop it.
Yeah, they're going up every year. The other thing, as you were talking, it just struck me is that suicide is the same thing.
Yep.
Right. Taking the gun away from someone who's suicidal is not going to stop them from killing themselves. Nope. If they've made up their mind. They're going to use some other form or method by which to take their life. So the key is it's the grievance. It's things that are I guess you could identify by looking at evidence of despair, helplessness, and hopelessness. And if any one of those three words come to mind when you're looking at someone who is exhibiting concerning behavior, they're likely in crisis. And it doesn't matter how they got there. The fact is they're there, and you've got to step in and be that social support.
100%. And we all have to work on it. Everybody, not just one person. All of us need to be looking after our friends and people we see that are struggling and reach out a hand to help. I think we can reduce these events if we just treat each other with respect.
Yeah.
All right, Doc, I know you got a big day ahead of you. You got a lot going on. So with that, SafeDefend Live, Dave and Doc, we are out of here.
Have a great weekend.